So, start with the prayer. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Vivekananda Suraye.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Satchit Sukha Swarupaya.
Swamine Tapaharine.
Swamine Tapaharine.
By April 1896, Swamiji had completed his lecture series in New York. He had wound up all his activities there and announced to the people there that he is going back to Europe, and from there he is returning to India. Immediately, as I told you yesterday, the Leggett family, Sarah Bull, and a few others told him, why not we see a little more of Europe? So the arrangement was that Swamiji with Josiah John Goodwin would go to London, and after some time, a couple of months or so, he would come to Paris. They would also come to Paris from the US, and the whole group would travel around Europe and return to London. So Swamiji came to England once again, the guest of Edward Sturdy, but this time Sharadananda was already there. He had already come from Kolkata. Swamiji started his lectures series in London, and to this series of lectures, regularly there was a couple coming and attending it. I will show the pictures later, a little later. Captain Sevier and Mrs. Sevier. Captain Sevier was a captain in the British Army, first in Afghanistan and later stationed in the Himalayas. He was very familiar with that area. They had no children. They had retired. Sevier had retired. They had settled down near London. They had bought a house, and they had heard about Swami Vivekananda. Since they knew quite a lot about India, they were curious. So they came to listen to Swamiji and started coming again and again and again. Margaret Noble was there, whom Swamiji had met in November 1895. So after 2 months, Swamiji announced to them that I have to rejoin my American friends in Paris for a European tour. Josiah John Goodwin said, I would like to stay back in London to look after my mother. I want to spend some time with her. Swamiji agreed. The Sevier couple said, can we come along with you? They were retired people, no responsibilities, no commitments, so they were free. Swamiji agreed. So the three of them came to Paris, and the American group was waiting for them in Paris. From Paris, they traveled south and crossed over to Austria. They saw a few places in Austria, and then they came down to Switzerland. Switzerland is one of the loveliest places in Europe. The only comparable place to Switzerland is our own Himalayas. There is the Alps mountain, and this is the Himalayas. Swamiji was very happy in Switzerland. He says, I felt as if I had gone back to the Himalayas. You know, he loved Himalayas like anything. Many times he used to say, I want to forget about all the lecturing, go to the Himalayas, live in a hut, and forget myself in Brahman. I don't want to have anything to do more with this world. So he spent a happy time. During the travels, they came to a small village called Saas-Fee. S-A-A-S, second word, Fee, F-E. Saas-Fee. Saas-Fee was very famous for a glacier. So what is a glacier?
Ice.
An ice mass which has settled down on the slopes of a mountain. Very unstable. There are many glaciers in the world. If you go and stand there and clap your hands, that sound is enough for the ice mass to come sliding down. Very dangerous also. The power behind that ice mass is enormous. There was a glacier. In order to cross the glacier from one end to the other end, there was a bridge, so that people can walk along the bridge and have a look at the glacier. Swamiji said, I want to walk on the glacier. And the others protested. Sarah Bull, especially Josephine MacLeod, they protested. You can't. It is too dangerous. He said, no, I'll do one thing. I'll walk on the glacier by the side of the bridge. You come on the bridge. Reluctantly they agreed, and Swamiji made that journey fairly safely. No accidents happened. They reached the other side. Swamiji stepped on dry land. Suddenly there was a rumbling sound, a distant thunder sound, and the whole glacier came tumbling down. 2 minutes, if Swamiji had delayed, he would have been swept away. Now, Sarah Bull and Josephine became really angry. They started scolding him as if he were a child. And Swamiji coolly replied to them, it is all your fault. When I was in US, you fed me so much, I became fat. My weight has gone up. So the glacier could not stand my weight. It gave way. Sarah Bull says, what do we do with this character? This petulant child. And then Swamiji announced to them, I have an invitation to go to the city of Kiel in northern part of Germany to meet one gentleman, a professor of philosophy there, Paul Deussen. So the Americans said, we will go back to United States, but please do come back again to United States. Swamiji said he will think about it. Now in the company of the Savior couple, he journeyed to Berlin first. Berlin was the capital of United Germany, united by Bismarck, the Iron Man of Germany. And it had then become a capital. If you go to Berlin, you will get an idea of what Rome was like at the time of the Romans. Grandeur. Huge public squares, huge roads, very tall buildings, and you'll find everywhere military marches. Moscow is another city which is like that, based upon the Roman architecture. And Swamiji from Berlin wrote a letter to Ramakrishnananda. Europe is preparing for a war. 1896. When did the war break out? 18 years later, 1914. And what a war. Such a war had never been witnessed in human history earlier. Swamiji saw the symptoms because of the fact that Germany was arming itself. There was a massive recruitment and massive production of arms. From there, the three of them came further north to the city of Kiel. And Professor Paul Deussen was waiting for them. They stayed with Paul Deussen for about 10 to 15 days. There is one incident reported in this particular stay which is mentioned in some books, which is glossed over in some other books. Of course, Deussen welcomed all the three of them. Deussen himself was a student of Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer was the man who introduced the Upanishads to the Germans. And he made a statement there. The Upanishads have been the solace of my life. They will be the solace of my death. When he was about to die, he had a copy of the 58 Upanishads, on his chest, he held it by the hands and expired. And Swamiji always used to say, he must have been a great Rishi of India who was reborn in Germany. And Paul Deussen was his student. Paul Deussen was a professor of Oriental philosophy. His speciality was Shankaracharya's Advaita. So he and Swamiji found a lot to discuss about Advaita philosophy. It is said that one morning Swamiji had come down to the parlor, a library, had opened a book and was reading it. Paul Deussen came to that place in the morning. From the door he wished Swamiji, "Good morning." No reply. Paul came inside the room. "Good morning." No reply. Paul came very close to Swamiji, literally shouted in his ears, "Good morning." No reply. Paul Deussen felt bad about it. At breakfast time he mentioned it to Swamiji. "I came this morning to the parlor when you were reading a book. I wished you good morning thrice. I am sorry you didn't reply. It was not exactly civil on your part, was it?" Swamiji said, Did you come to the parlor? "I am sorry, I didn't notice you." "How could it be possible? I was standing next to you and shouting literally in your ears." Swamiji said, "I am sorry, I didn't hear you." Then he said, "Wait." He brought the book he had been reading. Told Paul, "I read from pages so-and-so to pages so-and-so. Pick up the book and give me a page number." Only the page number was given, and Swamiji repeated verbatim everything printed on that page. Paul Deussen asked him, "How do you do it?" Several people had asked him earlier how he got that memory. He didn't reply to them. To Paul Deussen, he gave the correct reply because Paul was an Advaita philosopher. 12 years of Akhanda Brahmacharya, continence, opens a nadi in the cranium called Medha Nadi. Once that opens, then you have extraordinary memory and extraordinary recall capacity. Those people who are reciting the Vedic mantras must have practiced that. Now you hear a lady's voice, some ladies are singing variations of the Gayatri mantra. That requires a tremendous amount of concentration and dedication. Paul agreed, said yes, because he had read the Vedas. It is mentioned in the Vedas. There is even a separate collection of mantras, sukta, known as Medha Suktam. You are going to have your valedictory program on the 28th morning, and you will be having in the Ganapati temple a homa. You ask our Veda Vijnana Gurukula students, they will recite for you Medha Suktam. Medha Suktam is to be recited by students, requesting Medha Shakti to blossom out. That means they should get Medha Shakti in their studies. One day Swamiji announced that he has to go back to London with the Xavier couple. Paul and his wife said, "We will also come along." So they had two children. They left the children with neighbors, and the whole lot of them came via Amsterdam to London. Swamiji was anxious to meet this famous personality, Friedrich Max Müller, a German. He was born in Prussia, was an orphan at a very young age. A local nobleman adopted him, brought him up, sent him to Paris to Sorbonne University, where he specialized in Oriental philosophy. And he got his doctorate in that. After that, he came over to Oxford University, which invited him with a job of a professor. So he became a professor in the University of Oxford. He had heard of Swamiji. Swamiji had heard of him. Max Müller was the first Westerner to translate the Rig Veda into English and to publish it. Later he published 58 books, all about the scriptural texts of the East, sacred books of the East. That collection is in our library, in the reference section. You can go there and have a look at them, at least out of curiosity. 58 volumes. And so he was very fond, very happy to meet Swami Vivekananda. They became very fond of each other. Swamiji invited Max Muller to come to India. Max Muller said with tears in his eyes, "If I come to India, I will merge in this soil. I will not be able to return to England. Maybe in my next life, I will be born in India." Swamiji somehow maintained that he was a reincarnation of Sayanacharya, the brother of Vidyaranya. Have you heard of the Vijayanagara Empire? It was established by two brothers, Hakka, Bukka, under the guidance of Vidyaranya. Vijayanagara, the famous Vijayanagara Empire, where Krishnadevaraya was the emperor for quite some time. Vidyaranya had a younger brother, Sayanacharya. He translated or wrote commentaries on all the four Vedas in Sanskrita. They are available even today. The whole lot of them have been published in a compact disc from a group in Mysore. You know, the four Vedas, original text, commentary in Sanskrita, that CD costs 100 rupees. But the equipment with which you have to open the CD costs quite a lot. You require a special kind of software to open it. So that is Sayanacharya. And Swamiji said, Max Muller is an incarnation of Sayanacharya. Have you heard of Max Muller?
Yes.
In what connection?
Max Muller Bhavan in Bangalore.
Max Muller
Bhavan.
Bhavan. You know, funny thing, Germans have not heard of Max Muller. I was in Germany for 4.5 years. Occasionally I would ask people, "Do you know Max Muller?" I said, "What? Which Max Muller?" "Oh, we know Gerhard Müller." Who is Gerhard Müller? The football player for Bavarian team. Whole Germany has heard of him. But Max Muller? No, sorry, we have not heard of him. But in India he is known by us because of Max Muller Bhavan. Max Muller Bhavan is the Indian branch of Goethe Institute established in Germany for the transmission of German language. Only in India, elsewhere it is called Goethe Institute. Only in India it is called Max Muller Bhavan. In order to indicate to us people that Max Muller was a German, a very great Orientalist. So from there, Swamiji returned to London. Now he started making preparations to go back to India. He realized that the work in New York is suffering because he is no longer there and he is going to England. So he had already sent word to Abhedananda to come over to England and to replace Shardananda. By the time Swamiji returned from Europe, Abhedananda had come there. Swamiji introduced him to the Britishers and Shardananda was dispatched to New York. Now Swamiji's mind was content and he told the Xavier couple that he is going back to India. Goodwin was with him, prepared to go to India. The Xavier couple came to him and asked him, "Swamiji, is there something in India which we can do for you?" Swamiji said, "You are familiar with the Himalayas. It is my ambition to have an ashrama in the Himalayas. Can you help me set it up?" They said, "Certainly." 3 days later they came. "We have sold off our house. We have converted all our immovable assets into cash. The money is with us. Any day you say, we will all go back to India." So the date was fixed. Margaret Noble came and told Swamiji, "Can I come with you?" He said, "Margot, the time has not yet come. When the time comes, I'll send word for you." And Margot told him, "I'll wait for you. I'll wait for your call. So with all the arrangements made, Swamiji, Goodwin and the Savior couple took a boat from Southampton to come to Naples in Italy. Part of the journey they made like this. And in Naples, they got another boat going to Colombo. They reached Colombo in the beginning of January 1897. The ship was a huge ship, so it could not enter the harbor easily. It required a tugboat to pull the ship inside the harbor. When the ship was waiting for the tugboat, all the passengers came on deck to have a look at the harbor. The harbor appeared to be full of people, and there was some slogan being shouted. Swamiji thought, the Viceroy probably is on our ship or a major British official. But when the ship was brought close to the landing jetty, they could hear the voices more clearly, Swami Vivekananda Ji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. How could so many people gather? Swamiji had simply written a letter to one of his Guru Bhais in Kolkata that he is coming with his disciples by this boat on such and such a day. Two of them came straight away to Madras. By that time, Ramakrishnananda had settled down in Madras. He had been dispatched there. And they came and told Ramakrishnananda. Then all the three of them together came to Colombo, along with Alasinga Perumal and a couple of others. And they announced to the people of Colombo Swamiji's return. So Colombo people were also gathered in that huge group. Actually, what had happened was that the Madrasi had been making a lot of requests to Swamiji to send one of his Guru Bhais there to Madras. Now Swamiji decided this is the most opportune time. They got down from the boat. They were made to sit in a Victoria, as it used to be called, a coach dragged by 4 horses. There were no horses. Swamiji asked the people, where are the horses? Oh, we don't need horses. The people of Colombo are going to pull this chariot. They didn't call it a Victoria. They called it a chariot. So Swamiji came to the house of a nobleman there, one Chettiar. He settled down there, and immediately he came, people started demanding speech. And Swamiji started giving short speeches. And our friend Josiah John Goodwin was there taking down shorthand notes. That is the origin of the book, Lectures from Colombo to Almora. The whole lot taken down by one person, Goodwin. After spending a few days there, Swamiji decided to return to the mainland. There was a big group of 10 to 12 people. So 3 or 4 carriages had to be hired. On the way, they stopped in a few places. They stopped in Anuradhapura, which Swamiji had already seen on his way to the United States, the ancient capital of the Buddhist empire of Sri Lanka or Ceylon, whatever you want. They had a few adventures also on the way. Carriages broke down. Part of the distance they had to walk. Finally, they came to the northern part of Colombo, or rather Ceylon, known as Yalpanam. That is the center of LTT till recently, Yalpanam. From there, they took a boat, crossed the Park Strait, and landed in Rameshwaram. The exact place in Rameshwaram where these boats landed has been identified. And at that spot on the beach, there is a big temple for Swami Vivekananda. Our friend Bhaskara Setupati was waiting for him there. Bhaskara Setupati welcomed him now with open arms. Swamiji was very happy to see him. After spending some time in Rameshwaram, Swamiji decided to go to the north. He caught a train along with his companions going to Madurai, and that was the mistake he committed. People on the way had come to know about the fact that Swamiji is in the train. So every 10 minutes the train would stop, the engine driver would come to Swamiji's carriage and tell him, Maharaj, there are people lying on the tracks. They won't allow the train to move. You have to give a speech. And everywhere Swamiji had to give a 5-minute speech. All of them are to be found in that book. Lectures from Colombo to Almora. Until at last they reached Madurai. From Madurai they took another train. Came to Pondicherry. Same story. In Pondicherry they had to change the train. Ultimately they came to Madras or Chennai in the beginning of February 1897 to Egmore station. The whole Egmore station had been decorated thanks to Alasingha and his friends. They had announced in Madras that Swamiji is returning. From there, Swamiji was taken in a carriage. Swamiji and his companions. They were taken in a carriage. Once again, nobody to pull the carriage. The citizens of Madras pulled the carriage. And the centenary of that event was celebrated in Madras in February 1997 by dragging a chariot with the main picture of Swamiji along the identical route. Ultimately, the route ended on the beach road in front of this building. This is Captain Xavier, his wife Charlotte Elizabeth Xavier. When Swamiji came to Madras, the first thing he did was to shave his head off and assume the dress of a typical Indian sannyasi. The carriage stopped in front of this house. Today it is called Vivekananda Illam, Vivekananda House. In those days it was called Ice House. This house had been built by the East India Company for storing ice blocks which they had imported from London. They were stored in the basement. Even now you go to the building to the basement, in the hot summer you shiver because there is no ventilation and there is hardly any light. The walls are 8 feet thick, 2 meters or 3 meters thick. When the Britishers or the East India Company built the Fort St. George and got their own ice making machine, they sold this house. It was purchased by a Mysorean, Biligiri Iyengar. When Swamiji came there, the house was placed at his disposal. Biligiri Iyengar and his family were living in that building. And Biligiri Iyengar's great-granddaughter is still alive. She is living in Jayanagar here in Bengaluru. She has distinct memories of the stories she used to hear from her grandmother and grandfather about the arrival of Swami Vivekananda. When Swamiji came there, the upper floor was made free for him. There is one window which looks out on the Bay of Bengal. When you come out of this building, there is a beach road. Cross the beach road, you come to the beach, and beyond the beach, you have the Bay of Bengal. Fantastic breeze, 24 hours of the day, and even in summer, you have fantastic breeze. Ventilation is wonderful even today. So Swamiji stayed there for 9 nights and 10 days. Even today, Madrasis call those 9 nights Navaratri of Swami Vivekananda. When is Navaratri celebrated? Another name for Dasara. Dasha Ahaha. 10 days has become Dasara. So this is 9 nights, Navaratri. On the 10th day, he decided to return to Kolkata with the Xavier couple and his Guru Bhais and Josiah John Goodwin. In those 9 days, he gave 7 lectures. These lectures have come to be known as Chennai addresses. Earlier they were called Madras addresses, now they are called Chennai addresses. It is compulsory reading for all Indians. That is where he laid a blueprint for the development of India. There are 3 lectures there which all of you must read. The first one, the future of India. Work before us. What is the work we have got to do to develop India? The second one, my plan of campaign. What is my idea about the growth of India? And the third one is future of India, what will become of India. Wonderful suggestions there. And this is where he made a large number of very famous sentences which have become quotations. I want young men with muscles of iron and nerves of steel. Give me 100 such men, I can shake this world. This is the statement he made. He made another provocative statement. Let me see if you people can understand it. You can learn more of Karma Yoga on the football field than by reading the Bhagavad Gita. Have you played football or have you seen the continental football? Huh? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Let me see. When I was in Germany, that was the only entertainment I had. TV, sit in front of TV, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday of course, no football on Sunday, and watch all these matches. There is a forward line, 5 people, center forward, and 2 each on either side. They are the people who try to take the ball to the opposite goal. They are opposed by the players on the opposite side. And how do these South Americans play football, which has been picked up by the Europeans? They don't actually kick the football high, tossing on the ground, like a chess game. The ball goes from player to player and it comes up to the goal line. There is one person in the front who is known as a goal maker. What is a goal maker? He brings the ball right up to the goal, but he doesn't score. Why? He is under attack. One more player is on this side who is unwatched, unguarded. This goal maker tosses the ball to him. That fellow tosses the ball inside the net. Over. Who gets the credit? On paper, the one who scored the goal. But to whom do the teammates give credit? The goal maker. Does it not require selflessness on the part of the goal maker to toss the ball at the last moment to another player who will score the goal? Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadacha. Swamiji gave the example because he was a Bengali. And for Bengalis, the most popular game is football. But it is very effective. Indian football is where everybody tries to score the goal at the same time. And ultimately, all of them are kicked out of the game. We have to learn a lot from the South American style and the European style of football. Such provocative statements he used to make. I will not go into great details about this. So on the 10th morning, Swamiji decided to return to Kolkata. He was anxious to go back home. He had left Kolkata end of June 1890. It was now February 1897. 6 years and 3 months. He was anxious to go back home. This time he was wiser. He didn't take a train. He took a ship. So on the ship, he had a very calm voyage for a week. No disturbance. Why? You can't expect people to lie on the water in the path of the ship. You can't. Whereas in the train, there was a problem he had faced. So he needed the much required rest. Ultimately, on the 19th of February, he reached Kolkata, the harbour. And in the harbour, he was welcomed by the city of Kolkata, again with a horse carriage, again no horses. This time, a group of young people came forward to pull the carriage through the streets of Kolkata. He asked them, "Who are you people?" "Oh, we are students of Scottish Church College." Do you remember Scottish Church College?
Yeah.
Where Narayan was a student. He graduated in Bachelor of Arts from that college. So now those students were very proud. Our alumnus has come back. So they gave him the honor of pulling his carriage through Kolkata. On the 25th of February, this is a group photo in Madras. He has become a typical Indian sannyasi. You know the group of ladies and children? They are the family of Biligiri Iyengar, who were staying with Swamiji in that building. You can notice here, the Xavier couple is not here. They have already gone to Kolkata. And you notice here, Josiah John Goodwin, he has resumed Indian dress now. He is no longer dressed by the Britisher. He is dressed in that particular manner. And his Guru Bhais are there, two of them. And this is the public reception on 28th of February 1897. He is submerged in that crowd. Can you spot him?
Yeah.
There is a canopy. Below the canopy, there is one person sitting with a black turban. It is not a black turban, it is a Gerwa turban. Black and white photograph, it appears black. What a reception. The whole Kolkata rejoiced in his returning. Where was Swamiji accommodated? He got temporarily accommodated in this garden house, Gopal Lal Seal's garden house. What about Baranagore Mutt? It had been abandoned and they had moved to Alam Bazar Mutt, a much better building with a huge compound and wonderful trees. Alam Bazar Mutt. He used to stay here, go to Alam Bazar Mutt regularly to talk to his Guru Bhais. And then gradually he shifted to Alam Bazar Mutt. After all, there was the Ramakrishna Mutt where he had to stay. You can see the rest of the crowd. You can see Brahmananda sitting there. You can see a couple of Madrasi turbans. They are the Madrasis who had come along with him to Kolkata to be with him for some time. Then you see the Xavier couple and you also see Josiah John Goodwin. Now Swamiji's activity started. He took the Xavier couple with him to the Himalayas up to Almora. He left them there because that was familiar ground for them. That is where he had served, Almora and that area. They said they will look for a suitable land. Swamiji left with them a couple of brahmacharis to help them out with the local people. Then he returned and up to Almora he was giving lectures everywhere. Goodwin was there with him all the time taking down the notes. And that is the book, Lectures from Colombo to Almora. On the 1st of May 1897, Swamiji convened a meeting of all the devotees and disciples of Sri Ramakrishna in this house, the house of Balaram Bose. Why this house? This is where Sri Ramakrishna used to stay whenever he came to Kolkata. You remember when he was shifted to Shampukur area, he didn't like the home and had come away to Balaram Bose house for a couple of weeks. If you go to Balaram Bose house today, it is a property of the Ramakrishna order. There is a branch of the Ramakrishna Mutt there. They will show you how to go upstairs. You come upstairs, there is a corridor all around the house. Inside there is an open space. You see the veranda there. Behind the veranda there is a big hall, long hall. To the left extreme there is a room where there is a shrine for Sri Ramakrishna. That is where he used to stay and sleep in the night. So now it has become a shrine. All the people assembled in the main hall outside Sri Ramakrishna's room. Swami Vivekananda now made a formal announcement about the establishment of the Sri Ramakrishna order. Everybody approved it by voice vote. Somebody asked Swamiji later, why did you have to follow the Britishers in all these ways of organizing? He said, we are under British rule. If we don't organize it according to their rules, one day they may scrap the whole lot. We may find ourselves in the streets. So he followed strictly the rules of the registration of cooperative societies. Even today, Sri Ramakrishna order or mutt is registered under the Cooperative Societies Act. That is why it is so firm. Nobody can shake it. So Swamiji then made an announcement that they have to make an application to the Registrar of Cooperative Societies. To make the application, 7 signatures were required. They are called promoters. They came forward and they said that we will sign on this request. Swamiji was one of them, other 6 were nominated. 5th of May, the group met again. The letter was ready to be sent to the registrar. Swamiji had prepared a set of bylaws. He presented the bylaws to them, which was approved. You know the interesting thing? When did we get our Constitution of India? 26 January 1950. How many years ago? 64 years ago. Right? How many amendments has it gone through? 80 odd. The Ramakrishna Mission bylaws have not undergone any change in the last how many years? 117 years. No change. That was Swamiji's foresight. He had looked into the future and done things in such a wonderful way. The most important thing he said was, there will be no hierarchy in the Ramakrishna order. All the monks are brothers. Who is the eldest brother? The president. Who is the youngest brother? The one who has recently joined as a sannyasi. So, and another funny thing about the Ramakrishna order is, when a president passes away, the next president has to be forcibly nominated. Nobody wants to do that job. They say it takes a lot of time away from our spiritual practices. It has to be thrust upon them. In all other institutions, in Kerala there was an ashrama. The guru died. Wonderful man. He had 2 disciples. They started quarreling with each other. One of them went to the Congress party. The other went to the Communist party. And they entered the ashrama. Today, the ashrama doesn't exist. Because they gobbled up the whole lot and the money. Never get into the clutches of politicians. Ooh, they're vultures. If you want any improvement, it has to come from within. That was the foresight of Swami Vivekananda, that he prepared the constitution which has not undergone any change so far. So now Swamiji's heart was relieved. 25th of May, they received the approval of the Registrar of Cooperative Societies. In those days, things used to happen fast. Now the election of office bearers. Nobody wanted to become an office bearer. So Swamiji read out the list. He himself became the perpetual president. Who was the working president? Swami Brahmananda. A couple of people were made vice presidents and one person was made general secretary. Somehow Swamiji thought the best person for the post of General Secretary is Sharadananda. So he sent a letter to Abhedananda asking him to go to United States and to send to India Sharadananda. When Sharadananda came to India, he was made General Secretary. He remained General Secretary till his death. The most efficient General Secretary Ramakrishna Mission ever had, Ramakrishna Order ever had. They were all, gems of people, highly motivated. So Swamiji's mind was relieved. In the month of October, he got 2 letters. One from United States. Sarah Bull and Josephine MacLeod wrote to him, Swamiji, we want to pay a visit to Kolkata to see your place and to meet your fellow disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Swamiji sent back a reply, welcome, 1,000 times welcome. Another letter came from London. Swamiji, you seem to have forgotten me. When you left for India, I told you that I want to come with you. You said the time has not yet come. Now you seem to have forgotten me. Do you remember me? Margaret Noble. Swamiji replied back, my dear Margot, how can I forget you? You are always in my thoughts. Yes, I think the time has come for you to serve India. With what? Education of young widows. Balika Vadhu, who have become Vidhava. Who is to look after them? Even today, when a young girl becomes a widow, her life in our society can be miserable. But if they have education, there was one Subbulakshmi in Madurai. She was married at a very young age. She became a widow. Her father was a man with lots of guts, a Brahmana. You know what he did? He told his daughter to continue her studies and she became a medical graduate. The first woman medical graduate of India and the first woman gynecologist of India, and she became a big member in the Madurai Medical College. Possible. This was the job meant for Margaret Noble. Margaret Noble was waiting for this letter. As soon as the letter reached her, and Swamiji wrote something else very interesting. Life here is not simple. The weather is very harsh. Our winter is warmer than your summer. If in spite of all that you come here for my people, well and good. If you cannot and you want to go back, I'll send you back with all my blessings. She was waiting for that. She came by the very next ship, and the Americans also came a little earlier. Swamiji received all the 3 of them on 2 separate days, of course, and brought them to a house which had been rented for them in Kolkata. The first job he wanted to do was to introduce them to Sharda Devi. Sharda Devi had then come to Kolkata. She was staying in another house, not Balram Bose house, another private house. Today it is called Mayer Badi. It's a part of the Ramakrishna order. Swamiji took the 2 ladies, or the 3 ladies, Margaret and the 2 Americans, to them, to Sharda Devi. They went upstairs to Sharda Devi's room. Sharda Devi was sitting there with her 2 companions. The 3 ladies sat in front of her. Swamiji sat in a corner. He had come to see that if the Americans and the British girl, they want to ask questions, he can be an interpreter. 45 minutes they sat there. Sharda Devi did not know English. She couldn't talk to them. And these 3 people did not know Bengali. They could have asked Swamiji the question, but they kept silent. 45 minutes later, Sarah Bull told Swamiji, Swamiji, shall we go? They came out. Swamiji asked them, what happened to you? Tongue-tied? You didn't even speak to her? Sarah Bull said, Swamiji, we were in the presence of our mother. You don't have to go on talking in the presence of your mother, do you? Is it not enough that she is there? We felt so happy being in the presence of our Holy Mother. Swamiji says, I heaved a sigh of relief. My Western disciples have accepted Sharda Devi. They became the staunch devotees of Sharda Devi from that point onwards. So this was the month of November and December. We are now in the month of December 1897. When Swamiji was in England, a German lady settled in England, Henrietta Müller, had come forward to give him a donation to be utilized as he thought fit. Now with that money, he decided to purchase a land on the shores of the river Ganga. He wanted that to be close to Dakshineshwar temple, but he could not locate land on that side. However, opposite to Dakshineshwar temple, on the other bank, there was some free space in a village called Bengaluru. So he purchased that land, and it is on that land you have the famous Bengaluru Mutt today, international headquarters of the Sri Ramakrishna order. Luckily for him, in the Bengaluru Mutt campus there was a home, a house. Now the three ladies, Margaret and the two American ladies, had a look at the house, got it cleaned up, renovated, furnished it, and they started living there. They were the first occupants. Swamiji used to go and meet them every day in the morning, have a cup of tea with them, and then discuss Vedanta along with those people. One day, Margaret Noble told Swamiji, Swamiji, I want to become a sannyasini. Swamiji said, not yet. Not yet. That disappointed Margaret a little. It was the month of March 1898. There was a Christian festival, a very minor one. 2 days before that, he told her, come to my room 2 days from now in the morning at 6 o'clock. Before that, you go to the river Ganga, take a dip, wear white clothes. So 2 days later, Margaret Noble went to the river Ganga. She was staying anyway by the side of Ganga. She took a dip, wore white clothes, and came to Swamiji's room in that house. She went upstairs to Swamiji's room. Swamiji was sitting there on a mat. By his side there was another mat. He beckoned to her to sit down, didn't talk. The Agni Kunda, the fire had been lit already. As soon as Margot came, Swamiji started reciting mantras. He told her, repeat after me. So Margot started repeating the mantras after Swamiji. When the puja was over, Swamiji made Margaret do the arati. And then he asked her to come closer. She came closer to him. Swamiji put the palm of his right hand on the top of her head and said, Margot, herewith I dedicate you to my country. Your name henceforth shall be Nivedita. Nivedita means the dedicated. Eagerly she asked him, have you become a sannyasini? No. You are a Naishtiki Brahmacharini. You are a celibate for life. You can never go back to the world. You are a celibate for life. She was a little disappointed. Even next year, 1899, in the beginning she asked him, he said, no Margot, you are not meant for sannyasa. She couldn't understand at that time why Swamiji did it. She came to know about it later. Swamiji's Mahasamadhi was 1902. 1904 was the All India Congress Committee meeting in Surat. Nivedita attended that. That was the meeting in which Congress party split into two groups, the moderates and the radicals. People like Lal Pal Bal. Have you heard of them? Yes. Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. There was another young man already in Surat, Arvind Ghosh. who later became Sri Aurobindo. They were all inspired by the patriotic talks given by Nivedita. She became the inspiration behind all of them. When she returned to Kolkata, Brahmananda told her, Margot, that is why Swamiji did not make you a sannyasi. If you are in the Ramakrishna order, you cannot participate in political activities. She withdrew from the Ramakrishna order. That does not mean that she was no longer a disciple of Swamiji. She had very close contact with the Ramakrishna order. And she remained like that throughout her life. How many books she has written concerning Swami Vivekananda. Each one of them is worth studying, not reading. Studying. Her language is not easy to understand. She was Irish. She doesn't write a straightforward English. It's a little convoluted, like Sri Aurobindo's English. Sri Aurobindo's English is also convoluted. But if you go through the meaning, it's amazing what she has done for our country. So after that, summer came along, April. Kolkata became hot. The Western disciples told Swamiji, Swamiji, your health is breaking down. Why not all of us go to a cooler place? And they also wanted to see a little bit of India. So what is a cooler place? Kashmir. So they decided to go to Kashmir. So we leave them there. Tomorrow take them to Kashmir. And I will tell you some of the incidents which happened in Kashmir when the whole crew went there. Okay? So we close with the prayer. Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.